Our God is compassionate, and as Christians, we know that we are created in God's image, and we want to be like Him. But instead of simply saying to God, okay, Lord, teach me compassion, shouldn't we go out and seek someone who needs compassion? That's what Mother Teresa did. At 12 years of age, Agnes Boyaciu, who was raised in Yugoslavia, decided to become a nun. At 18 years of age, she left home, studied in Darjeeling, India, which is where she joined the Loreto sisters. She taught in a high school for 20 years, and when asked to describe her by her colleagues, they would often say, she's average. And her calling was to serve the poor in the slums, and it was in 1946 when she was on a train that she felt God calling her to do this. Soon after leaving Loreto, she was on the street and she said, with no shelter, no company, no helper, no money, no employment, no promise, no security, it was then I prayed and said, my God, you, only you, I trust in your call, your inspiration, you will not let me down. Well, she started her work, and she started by picking up one dying woman who had been partly eaten by rats and ants in the gutter, and she took her to the hospital, and Mother Teresa refused to budge until the reluctant doctors agreed to treat that woman. Later, she talked the city into giving her space in a former Hindu temple, which she turned into a home for the dying. And since then, thousands of people have been rescued off the streets. Mother Teresa, as we all know, devoted her life to serving the poor and the destitute around the world and helping those in great need. Now, some have criticized her work. They've criticized her for lack of proper medical attention, refusal to give painkillers. Others argue, however, that it afforded many neglected people the opportunity to die knowing that somebody cared. Now, over time, the work grew, missions were started overseas, the scope of work expanded. Mother Teresa's life, as we know, was influenced by her faith. She confessed that at many times she did not feel the presence of God, but even so, she remained faithful to God and to the work that He called her to do. Mother Teresa's name has become synonymous with servanthood. The way she exemplified servanthood makes us wonder how she did what she did. And we have to face it, she has intrigued the world. When we think about what Jesus might say to Mother Teresa, or to any person with faith and compassion of a servant, what might his response be? I think his response can be found in Matthew 25, these verses. Then the king will say to those on his right, my Father has blessed you. Come and receive the kingdom that was prepared for you before the world was created. When I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. When I was naked, you gave me clothes to wear. When I was sick, you took care of me. And when I was in jail, you visited me. Then the ones who please the Lord will ask, when did we give you something to eat or drink? When did we welcome you as a stranger or give you clothes to wear or visit you while you were sick or in jail? The king will answer, whenever you did for any of my people, no matter how unimportant they seemed, you did it for me. And something else he might say is, thank you, good and faithful servant, thank you. Now, I just want you to think of the times in your life when you extended God's grace to people in need. Think of the response then being the same to you. Whenever you did it for any of my people, you did it for me. Thank you. What is suggested in today's text is that people, when they heard Jesus say this, they were surprised by his words. Because they asked him, when? When did we do this for you? When did we do anything for you? And this element of surprise is actually interesting. When we think about it, it could be a surprise to them because followers of Christ have a heart for those in need. Helping someone when help is needed is a natural response. They don't think twice about it. When Jesus is our King and on the throne of our lives, responding to a need, it's instinctive. And so this response is kind of like saying, wow, I never thought of it like that before, but if I had, I might have done a whole lot more. There's a story that's been around for years about a man named Martin. He was a cobbler, lonely shoemaker, and he was promised a visit by the Lord on one particular day. And eagerly all day he waited for his arrival. But all that came was a man in need of shoes, young mother in need of food and shelter, and a child in need of a friend. Martin ended the day thinking, okay, perhaps the next day the Lord will come visit him, which is when he heard a voice reply saying, I did come to you today, Martin. Not once, but 3 times. I came. That's not how Martin expected it to be. No doubt surprised by the explanation of this kind of appearance, not what he thought the presence of Jesus would look like, nor what it would be like to see the face of God. But that's what Jesus said. Whenever you do something for people, no matter how unimportant they seem, you did it for me. So what's being suggested here is that we view every individual as though they were Christ himself. Treat everyone as if they were Jesus. And look at people through the eyes and heart of Jesus. And I just encourage you to think about this a little bit more as we watch this short video clip.
We have to keep you alive for now. Come on, scribes, even you need to eat. That's for you, Theophilus.
John, I'm afraid to even call you by name now. Jesus saved us. And he brought you, his last apostle, here into this pit. Why?
Give me that bowl. This is enough for you, old man. And consider it a gift for what little you get done at the mine.
The Apostle John looked at the miner through the eyes and hearts of Jesus, saw the face of Jesus in him, treated him as if he was Jesus. And after doing that, did you see the heads turn? In the act of love and compassion, others began to see the face of Christ too. Jesus said, whenever you do something for my people, no matter how unimportant they seem, you did it for me. So whether it's a family member, friend, acquaintance, someone we don't know well, there's something they need, it's up to us to treat them as if they were Jesus. Do that, and the face of Jesus will be seen. It was busy at the food bank one day. Lineup was long. Food bank was running dry, and there was one woman. She was the last person in line, and there's only one banana left. And the attendants apologized for not being able to give her more, but still she said she was grateful. She took that banana. She went to 3 children who were waiting outside, and she peeled it, carefully divided it into 3 parts, and said, one for you, and one for you. And then for her own meal, she just licked the inside of the banana peel. And the one who witnessed all of this just said, I will always believe that I saw the face of God that day. Whenever we do something for someone, we do it for Him. I think Mother Teresa's work has intrigued the world because she did that. She actually said, I pretend that the people I see are Jesus. And so she looked at others in the way He wants us to look at His people. And I think that's what has distinguished her work, or made it different from others. It's what distinguishes God's servants from others. When we look at Mother Teresa and others like her, what we see is not trendy volunteerism or conscious soothing good deeds. It's servanthood with a difference. And it flows out of a relationship with Christ that is dependent on Him, empowered by Him, and guided by Him. It's serving others as we would serve Jesus Himself. Some people are compassionate towards others and motivated to help others because they feel guilty over what they have themselves. Some pity the poor and think that they should give something back. Some do it because it makes them feel worthwhile. And whatever the source that creates their compassion, sooner or later what we find is that it will run out or it will run dry. And it often does, whereas Mother Teresa, what she did was connect every morning with God, and during the day she channeled His love and compassion through her to others, and God's supply of compassion never ended. When we know life isn't about doing a bunch of good deeds, but about staying connected with God and giving away the love He gave us, that's where the difference lies between volunteerism and servanthood. Love for God, not self, is the motivating factor. People aren't pitied, they're respected. Every person is seen in God's image. Every person has infinite value, therefore worthy of love and respect. And sometimes people jump on the volunteerism bandwagon, and eventually it becomes inconvenient or difficult, so they drop out of the program. Mother Teresa, in response to that, said it hurt Jesus to love us, and so she continued to serve others despite the costs involved. Another reason for her faithfulness was the fact that she was firmly convinced that she was where God wanted her to be. And there is a terrific source of strength when you are certain that you're following what God wants you to do. That was obvious in that video. In the Bible, it says that every follower of Jesus is given one or more spiritual gifts, and a spiritual gift is a God-given ability to serve in a way that exceeds natural talent. Mother Teresa was given the spiritual gift of mercy, the divine enablement to minister cheerfully and appropriately to people who are suffering. That's how God wired her, enabled her to do what she did. And not every Christian has that particular gift, but all Christians are called to express compassion to those in need, and God will provide us the grace to do so. So the difference between volunteerism and Christian servanthood is this: what's done for someone else is fueled by God's love and compassion. So the motivation is God's love for us. So my question for you is, if you feel tugged towards serving others in the name of Jesus, what should you do? Mother Teresa was asked that question herself, and here's the response she gave. I know you think you maybe should go to Calcutta, but I strongly advise you to save your airfare, spend it on the poor in your own country. It's easy to love people far away. It's not always easy to love those who are right next to us. There are thousands of people dying for a piece of bread, but there are thousands more dying of a bit of love and a bit of acknowledgement. The truth is, she said, that the worst disease today is not leprosy or tuberculosis, it's being unwanted, left out, unforgotten. The worst thing for us is when we forget the next person, she says. Well, apparently she came to America and she had a visit, and she visited a nursing home, beautifully decorated nursing home. She found the residents sitting there in the wheelchairs facing the door. And she asked, why are all these people looking toward the door? Why aren't they smiling? I'm used to seeing smiles on all our people, even the dying ones. And the nurse replied, saying, it's like this every day. They're always hoping someone will come and visit them. Their loneliness is eating them up. I have to say that seeing people sitting in wheelchairs facing the door is not uncommon. On the long weekend, last long weekend, Michael and I, with kids, we were away up north, and we were sitting around the pool, engaged in conversation with others. And one person there is a pediatric surgeon at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. And another person asked, when will you start sharing your skills with adults? And she said quickly, no, never. I just love taking care of the children because there is always someone waiting for them and ready to take them home. That's not the case with many seniors. I can't do it, she said. So a question for us is, who's staring at the door? Who is waiting for a person like you and me? Maybe it's someone under your own roof, a son or daughter who is secretly aching to talk about things that are deep in their soul. Maybe it's an elderly parent, grandparent who has been discarded, a guy at work who's always the odd man out, child who is shunned by fellow students, former friend whose calls you don't return anymore, or the single mom whose life is collapsing around her. Maybe it's the neighbor who's steeped in despair, widow whose her relationship world has shrunk to nothing, or the immigrant who feels isolated and lonely in a confusing new culture. I'm just asking, do you know someone? Do we know someone who's staring at the door and waiting for someone like us? I think we all do. And so, in closing and in words of Lee Strobel, I just say this: go to them and practice. Let's practice being a distributor of God's compassion, honoring every person who is engraved in the image of God. Practice meeting their needs, encouraging them, listening to them, and just pretending that they are Jesus. Because in a very real sense, pretending that we're doing it for Jesus, because in a very real sense, we are. There will always be critics, but for many, Mother Teresa is remembered today for being one who was fueled by God's love and compassion and faithful to what God called her to do. I just ask, how do you want to be remembered? When someone has to find a few words to say about you, What do you want them to say? As you sit and listen to this next song that they will sing for us now, I just ask that you think about that some more. How do you want to be remembered?